It's a symbol of separation, a barrier, one that's been at the center of a divisive issue in America long before this year.
The difficulty in crossing is a new phenomenon.
But now in 2020, in places along the border like here in Arizona, COVID-19 has brought a new angle to immigration.
By opening the border, it would considerably help this community. It would bring it back to life again.
This week we take a look at the state of immigration in America as we get closer to deciding on November 3rd. This is The Race. Welcome to The Race. I'm Chris Stewart. Nogales, Arizona is a point of entry between the United States and Mexico. On a map, this wall may look like it's on the edge, the last line before you cross into another country. But the people who live here don't see the border as a barrier. Instead, it's a line going through the heart of their community. And that's made the restrictions that have come with the pandemic especially hard.
The title of that piece is Las cosas que no se pueden detener. It's the things that cannot be detained.
Sometimes images can communicate feelings in ways words fall short.
And it speaks to the fluidity of the culture and the things that cannot be taken away by that really distinct separation.
To know how a pandemic and politics have impacted Nogales, Aisa Huerta will tell you, just look around.
It's another world here, and so often it's missed.
On the street that's home to her art gallery, steps from the border, there's not much to see at all.
We're closed right now because we don't have shoppers.
For more than 7 decades, Evan Corey's family has owned stores in Nogales, Arizona, a city of around 20,000 people. On the other side is Nogales, Mexico, a city with a population more than 10 times that. A community that fuels Evan's businesses. Most of his customers come from Mexico.
I would say 90% at least, if not all.
Since March, the Mexican-American border has been closed to non-essential travel, meaning Mexican shoppers and the millions of dollars they spend in Arizona must stay on the other side of the wall.
We've always been dependent of the population in Mexico to support our local economy. So as soon as that's cut off, our economy is shut down, essentially.
Some economic activity, like trade, still flows between the two countries. Air travel isn't restricted, but policy says you must have essential reasons to drive or walk across. For now, the rules mean Alex LaPierre can't lead tours across the border for his nonprofit, a group that aims to show how concrete and barbed wire can't divide two cities with powerful similarities.
I think the more opportunities that we can get to one-on-one, citizen to citizen, meet our neighbor and see that we're not all that scary, that we have a lot of common interests.
The worst part is like we can't share what it is that we love about this area.
Here, it's less about what's considered Mexican or American.
It feels like one whole city here, just divided by a fence.
For locals like Aisa Huerta, the closer you live to the border, the easier it can be to see through the narratives about immigration, often written by those who live far away.
So you hear about the worst case scenarios or the drug busts or immigration, really the atrocities of this area without ever getting the opportunity for residents here to tell their story or what it's like to live on the border of two different nations.
There are nearly 200 sanctuary cities and counties in the United States, places that restrict just how much they cooperate with federal immigration agencies. Alexa Liaco takes us to one in the nation's heartland, still divided over the decision.
This mom worked for years to have moments like these with her daughters. But even a peaceful walk brings worry from time to time.
It feels unsafe to be who you are sometimes.
She's asking we call her Jay to protect her identity, because even in a community where legally she should be safe, Jay is still concerned.
We know what it's like to be living in fear, to have that uncertainty.
She came to the United States as a young child and eventually settled in Kansas. Growing up undocumented taught Jay about a different side of the American dream. It meant asking neighbors to use their name for utilities and not accessing community resources.
Calling the police on someone, definitely. We've stopped ourselves. We don't want those questions.
She saw the same fear in her own daughter's eyes as her family worked for over 4 years for her husband to become documented.
Our daughter has asked what would happen to her dad if he was pulled over. Would he be taken away? That's just a constant fear of, are your parents going to come home that day?
Now that her family is documented, Jay wants to use her voice to help others in her community stop feeling that same worry, a feeling she's still confronting herself, especially after ICE raids last year ended in the wrong man getting arrested and federally detained in her own community.
You can't even walk without looking the way that we look, and someone saying, I bet that person's undocumented, and they're probably a criminal, so let's get them.
So she joined a group called Sanctuary Alliance, a grassroots movement fighting to designate the city of Lawrence as a sanctuary city. It took a year of meetings and discussions, but just weeks ago, the city commission voted the sanctuary ordinance was approved.
The intent is to comply with the law while strongly discouraging unlawful discrimination.
So what does it mean to be a sanctuary city? The Lawrence, Kansas ordinance says no city department can ask about immigration status, including the police and the court system. Anytime an ID is required, a resident can present identification valid in their home country. And all city services, including transit, parks, and utilities, are available to all residents, regardless of immigration status. And if anyone asks about status, there are ways people can safely report violations to the city.
Statistically, a sanctuary city will become safer because the citizens who are undocumented will then now not be afraid to call the police when they see a criminal act.
Safety in this community is just the start. Sanctuary Alliance is now pushing for county-wide sanctuary, but while that fight continues, Jay takes comfort in her city ordinance, bringing a new era of unity this community has never seen before.
There's still some work that needs to be done, but it will make it better.
For The Race, I'm Alexa Liacco.
We live in an on-demand society where many things are done online with instant results. Becoming a U.S. citizen is not one of those things. We found the process can be long and complex.
Becoming a U.S. citizen is a goal people from around the world dream of.
I hereby declare.
Taking the oath of allegiance, as it's called, marks a new beginning. But it also marks the end of another chapter.
So help me God.
One that takes time and hard work. When a person decides to become a U.S. citizen, the first step in the process is making sure they're eligible. Only adults who have been permanent residents for at least 3 years, who can read, write, and speak basic English, and who know the basics about U.S. government and history are eligible to move on. There are very few exceptions. Step 2 is actually applying for citizenship, and that means paperwork, documents, and fees. The government asks for detailed personal information about the applicant, where they've lived, worked, and gone to school. It also asks about spouses, children, and parents. But the questions on this 20-page application go much deeper, with sections about military service, criminal history, and ties to terrorist organizations and other violent groups. It costs $640 to file the application, plus another $85 to submit biometrics, or photos, fingerprints, and a signature. The FBI conducts a background check and refers those who pass to an interview with immigration officers, where the hopeful citizen will also take an English and civics test. In most cases, a decision letter comes in the mail shortly after. For those denied citizenship, there's an appeals process. But for those whose letters say granted, there's just one step left: the naturalization ceremony.
Congratulations, you're now citizens of the United States of America.
The race continues next.